How exactly does Kenjaku swap bodies with his curse technique? Let's talk about it, but spoilers beware. We don't know. The short answer is we just don't know the nuance and specifics of how he is hopping bodies like this, and I wanted to get that out of the way at the jump. But with that out of the way, let's talk about what we do know. Okay, so to our knowledge, Kenjaku has done this 4 times. Probably way more than that, but just 4 different bodies that we get to see. But we don't ever get to see him actually make the jump. So because of that, Yuta is the best example we have, and in his case, we know that Shoko definitely helped him with this process. But to what extent she helped, we have no idea. All we got to see was Yuta say that he was ready, and Shoko say that she had finished preparations on Gojo's body. But that could have just meant that she had stitched him back up after being bisected, right? Did Shoko literally perform a brain transplant, or was she just there to oversee things and make sure that both bodies were as healthy as they could be, since both of them had taken grievous injuries? I would say that the implication seemed to be that Shoko did the heavy lifting, as in she literally performed a brain transplant. But if that's the case, who helped Kenjaku do this 4 or 5 or however many times in his life, right? And sure, he was a very charismatic and manipulative guy when he needed to be, so I'm sure he could have convinced people to help him with this process. But the interesting thing you got to think of here is that brain transplants don't even exist in the real world in the modern day, right? We could say that maybe they do within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. And so yeah, you've got Shoko, a modern doctor, there to help. But Kenjaku's over 1,000 years old. You know, what kind of doctor was he finding back in the Heian era to perform a brain transplant? So it might be the case that Kenjaku can just do this by himself, but in Yuta's case, since it was his first time ever using the technique, he didn't know how to do that, and so it was good that Shoko was there to maybe help or, again, literally perform the transplant. At the very least, we know that Kenjaku's brain has a mouth and that it's perfectly fine being exposed to the open air like this. So maybe a part of his technique is the fact that his brain can kind of hop out of a body, maybe it's got some little tendrils or something, and can move around for short periods of time or something. So maybe as long as Kenjaku preps the other body and his own, then he can just by himself jump out of one body and crawl on over to another. You know, maybe he's like Krang from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something. So again, the short answer is we just don't know because we don't have enough information. But big shout out to Big Bunger, an incredible name by the way, for asking me about this. And then on the subject of Kenjaku and body transference, I got sent in this theory on cursed objects and their creation from Clint. And essentially what he's saying here is that since we know Principal Yaga's cursed corpses were basically only possible because of the merging of 3 souls working together, perhaps the merging of souls is also what led to the creation of cursed objects. And he cites Kenjaku's curse technique, the brain swapping, and how that's kind of like 2 things coming together being a part of this, and also the fact that Kenjaku experimented on the cursed womb death paintings, which were a merger between a human and a cursed spirit, so 2 souls there. And finally, that Sukuna and his twin might have been some inspiration for this as well. And I certainly think all of that tracks, and I think all of those things did lead to Kenjaku's eventual creation of the cursed objects. But what I will say is that I don't think the cursed object itself in the process of becoming a cursed object is the merger of 2 souls. But I do think once it's ingested, that's part of the equation and the science, if you will. But I don't think the object itself is the merger of 2 souls because it seems that only one is involved at that point, right? You know, be it Sukuna or be it Kashimo or whoever, right? When they first became a cursed object, I don't know who they would have been merging with. It's only once they're ingested that then happens. And that's not to say that, you know, all of this still couldn't be true once that part occurs, but I just don't think the merger is what initially enables it, if that makes sense. But yeah, I certainly think all of those things that you spoke of were definitely the reason why any of this happened. It was only because Kenjaku had that experience in those realms that he was able to kind of have the cursed object breakthrough in general. That's going to do it for this one, y'all, but I'd love to hear all of y'all's thoughts and theories on just how all of this works. And as always, thank you for watching.